When I was in 3rd grade, we had a substitute teacher named Mr. Beer. At the time, I was basically a child who doesn't know how exactly people work when you meet them. If I could remember correctly, Mr. Beer didn't do much, but he didn't yell or anything. He just told us that he will be our teacher for the day and to do any assignments our teacher told us to. So yeah, not bad, right? Well, my older brother told my mom and I a story about his experience with Mr. Beer. When my brother was in middle school, Mr. Beer had to be my brother's class sub for the rest of the year because his teacher had an accident where she wouldn't be able to teach the class. My brother stated that Mr. Beer were lashed out in front of the class out of nowhere. I mean, like when the students weren't doing anything, he would scream at them. Another incident that happened was when my brother was going to fight someone. Mr. Beer pushed him. I know I'm not making sense, so I apologize for this. This is not something a teacher should be doing to their students by unnecessarily pushing them in a harsh way. My brother asked, "What's your problem?" to him, but Mr. Beer didn't say anything. So after that, my brother was trying to convince his friends that Mr. Beer is insane and that his behavior is not normal. I believe no one believed him until what had happened on September 2014. So at that time, I was in 5th grade and on the bus. I was told by a friend that Mr. Beer had been arrested for beating his 2-year-old foster son to death. The man who was a substitute teacher turned out to be an abusive monster. So why did I bring this up now? Well, it's mostly because I found an article that Beer is going to be in prison for 30 years. So we won't worry about seeing him again, since he would be in his elder years and probably won't survive. Also, since his arrest, his other foster kids are no longer in the house they were living in. It must feel horrible to know that one of your siblings died at the hands of a monster. This was a great number of years ago. I'm starting to feel old by thinking of my old school days now. We went away for the weekend on a school trip. This was my first time actually being selected to go. I was the class clown back in the day, often performing pranks on other students and teachers. So I was never picked for anything, but this year I was on my best behavior and this was my reward. My pranking days were behind me. Before I go further, to let me introduce the teacher, Mr. Smith. He was well known around the community, always organizing charity events to raise funds for the school and various other charities. He even took part in marathons to raise funds. Roll on to the school trip I spent with him. He was full of humor and funny, really kept us all motivated in the activities that we took part in. On the first night, however, I noticed that he got up from his bed on numerous occasions. I assumed this was due to other kids misbehaving in the other rooms. Nothing happened to me all that night, but the next day my friend, who I was also shared a room with, had dared me to perform a prank on the teacher. I told him my pranking days were over, but after some constant gestures from my friend, I decided to perform one last prank. Mr. Smith had left the room that night too. He was gone for a while. We had taken some sellotape earlier that day, and when he left the room, we'd literally made a web of the tape for him to walk into when he entered the door. We'd waited a long time for him to enter, and I found it a struggle not to fall asleep. I had just started to doze when suddenly he entered the room reacting to walking into the sellotape. He knew instantly it was me. Me and my friends were hysterical and we were lucky he saw the funny side too. However, he said to me, "You're very lucky this isn't the 70s, because I'd have canned you by now, and I have enjoyed it too," and then he laughed. Nothing happened to me at all, but it wasn't until 4 years later it came out that Mr. Smith was a pedophile. He had been arrested and his arrest had made the headlines in our hometown. He had 44 cases of abuse towards children, mostly girls, against his name. 2 of the incidents had actually happened during that one trip that I'd went on with him. I felt sick to my stomach at my near miss. He had also been charged for attempted murder as he tried to kill a victim that threatened to report him. Our entire hometown was disgusted by him, and even now no one mentions his name. He had done so much for the community, but all that he had done was just a way to gain our trust so he could get away with all his crimes for years. He was arrested for more than 10 years, but was allowed out after 6 only for him to be arrested again under a new identity. He eventually committed suicide in prison. I am glad that nothing happened to me, but also shocked at how close I was to something terrible happening to me.